Welcome at App Marketers Unplugged. In today's Unplugged session, we are going to talk about creative innovation for mobile games and how technology and automation can lead to better creative decisions that boost performance. We have a great lineup of experts today and quite an international one as well. In fact, we are going to have this conversation across 3 continents. I'm pleased to start my round of introductions with Dawn Hosey, who is joining us from San Francisco today. Dawn is a content producer at Twitter, where she's heading up the production of playable ads. She joined Twitter together with the rest of the cross-install team when Twitter acquired cross-install earlier this year. From the beautiful north of Germany in Hamburg, we have Pau Quevedo joining our session today. Pau is leading the programmatic trading at Goodgame Studios, and previously to that, he was in charge for programmatic advertising at InnoGames in Hamburg as well. Steve Chart is joining us from London today. Steve co-founded Luna Labs, a platform that helps game developers to create playable ads from the Unity engine. I'm going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Philip. I'm the head of sales APAC at Jampp, and I'm hosting this podcast today from Singapore. The quarantine has affected how a lot of us structure our days. For starters. For a lot of us, it means we don't have to commute anymore and we get to spend more time at home. Maybe in the past, some people, they played mobile games on their way to work, but now their playtime has changed. This seems like both a challenge, but also an opportunity for gaming advertisers to reach and engage their players. Pau, have you adjusted your creative strategy since the beginning of the pandemic? And do you see big differences in terms of the creative performance since the start of the pandemic and the time before?
After the pandemic, since we had to move to home office, we actually saw a change in terms of the processes, how we design the creative and how we communicate with the artists. But in terms of what creative we've been using, we haven't been using any variety specific from COVID. What had happened is that we were able to scale and spend more, and that gave us more room to play and to test new things. And that's basically what pushed the creative production and variety that we had in the last months. And it's just that we were able to test more different formats or different themes inside. Yeah.
Okay, so it's more concerning the scale and not so much the way you create.
We've seen some studios actually taking advantage of the COVID and putting some pictures and things, but we decided not to take that road. And it actually played out fine for us.
Okay. Steve and Dawn, have you seen clients changing their creative strategy because of the pandemic or because of the quarantine situation?
Similar, we have had clients request to use COVID-specific, language on a banner, for example, not so much in playable because playables take a while to build. Banners are quick. However, we ethically decided that that's not really the best route to take. So same answer. For us, it's all about the scale, right? More testing, different creative strategy, but nothing specific to the pandemic.
Pau, do you have a must-have creative format? And do you think that there is one format that usually performs much better and it's more engaging than other creative formats?
Well, first, we at Goodgame Studios, we have games that are based on farming games, like a more casual, and also like a simulation and strategy. I'm saying this first because it totally depends on your game. You'll probably be using different type of creatives, just to be honest. So we focus mostly on banners and videos. It would be by channel. If you're running UA, you will most likely be using rewarded video, 15 or 30 seconds. If you're running networks or Facebook, if you're running banners, you'll be either running native or retargeting. Especially rewarded video is the one that is dominating the industry right now, at least on our section. In terms of the aspect of the creatives, what we are seeing that it works really well is to try to put human characters into them. Somehow, even if your game doesn't have it, we've seen some good performance trying to humanize the game somehow and trying to give some emotional attachments to them.
And do you see for rewarded video ads that it works for a certain type of users, or do you use it across the board?
For retargeting, we normally use banners because they're cheaper, okay? Unless it's a very valuable user that would actually want them to get back in and they stopped playing time ago, and then we want to show them something they missed. Then we show them like some new gameplay, some new levels they're missing or something. But normally we'll be using video for UA and pretty much any kind of user that is actually using those games that need a reward. Because either payers and non-payers, they want to get a reward when they are playing. But if you're showing a banner, most likely it's going to be an interstitial. And that one is going to be most likely to non-payers. Because payers don't want to get those annoying in-between things. So there you know that there's kind of different users, and you have to take that into account. And then we'll also have differences within the type of videos, for instance, if they are more focused on the gameplay or cinematics. And that will be different if we believe that they are hyper users or not. And depending on the CPMs that we see, we know probably this kind of video works better than this other one.
I think there's a question mark of like how the playables, are constructed, how they're used, how they're tested, how much can be tested, and how you kind of tap into the kind of the meta of that game, or how you tap into the emotion of something. Like I think Pal's point, if there's particular emotions which you can trigger by creating something which is not exactly like the game, right? But you can evoke that in a playable, then it can tend to work pretty well. Once that happens, and once you get that right formula, then you can be very successful. But I think with everything with playables, I think in the past it's been quite tricky, to get access to good playables. It takes quite a few playables to get to where you need to be, right? So
I feel like, I feel like the reason why playables in general fail is just because, one, they're a lot more expensive to build than video and banner. And so because of that, it's a lot harder to iterate, right? If you build one playable and fails, that is the cost of 3 or 4 videos. Depending on who you're working with, right? So I think there's a lot of opportunity for playables to succeed, and a lot of opportunity to have playables work for any genre. It's just a matter of dollars and cents. There's not too many places that you can source quality playables from, and because of that, there's really it's a bandwidth issue, right? To me, it's a dollars and cents issue. One creative that is a playable can be very hyper performant, but it comes down to quantity, right? One video does not drive the entire success metric of a game.
If we are in this world where accessibility is an issue and dollars and cents is an issue, then there's kind of in-housing of creating. This is not just playables, right? This is kind of like across the board, having a real considered kind of rethink of like how and the creative department is structured, how the UA team is structured is happening, and it's real, right? And so when it comes down to playable production in particular, you got to have a bunch of different concepts which you start from. Off the base of that learning, you get to something which is a lot stronger. And then this kind of vertical testing, right? So then going through and actually switching out the things like different characters, sensitivity, difficulty, colors, UA, different end cards, optimizing the exit points, optimizing the entry points. There's like a hell of a lot which goes into that. To that refining that playable. But once you get there, it can have really, really strong longevity. It can kind of outperform a video for a long time. Obviously, it's also very dependent on the traffic you run in, right? Every channel is different, so that needs to be taken into consideration.
When you're talking about the conception of playable ads, it sounds quite complicated and pretty complex, right? Do advertisers have a concept in their mind, or is this something where you need to help them to start off in the right way?
When we speak to our developers, there's a bit of guidance at the beginning of trying to help them optimize that kind of workflow. The CTA, the engagement, you'll know this, like getting the first 5 seconds in that playable is absolutely mission critical. And then obviously the kind of exit point, like the right kind of end card, the right kind of incentive for people to actually go onto the store, whether it's kind of saying, hey, here's the next level, and off you go to the store, or whether or not it's, hey, try this new character, and off you go to the store, or whatever. There's just a lot that goes in there. So we definitely advise and help and do what we can to make sure that our clients are successful. Yeah, absolutely. It's a constant effort.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that question as well. So yeah, clients almost always have a client in mind when they approach our team. You know, they have the playable that they want to build. We almost never go exactly with that for a lot of reasons. The main reason is that because a lot of clients, they come to us because we build playables, right? They think as if it were a video. Videos are designed to keep your attention by putting a lot of different concepts in. Basically, here's the game. We know that these are the things that resonates with users the most. Let's put them in this playable. Playables are a very different medium. You don't have to tell the user what's in the game, right? You need to show them, and you show them by driving a really fun experience. So often what we'll see, right, is we want, I'll create a really quick fictional game. We want a character to beat this enemy. After you beat the enemy, you open the chest. After you open the chest, you get 3 cards. After you get the 3 cards, you pick the one that you want. And then after you pick the one that you want, it does a cool effect. On paper, that sounds great, but in a playable, right? One, that is like a 50-second experience. So immediately it's not going to perform. But 2, it's focusing on so many different things. And this is what we find that we need to educate clients on, is that it's about short, sweet, simple experiences, right? Just like you said, Stephen, that first 5 seconds, hypercritical. That first 1 second, hypercritical. If you don't get someone into the action very quickly, and that action is not clearly communicated, then your playable is going to fail. And we realize that the more control you give the client outside of the branding world, right? It hurts, because the data is king or queen. The data is the one that tells you if the playable is successful.
Interesting. So it sounds like there needs to be lots of help and advice.
Doesn't need to be too scary, right? At the end of the day, like it's not a wolf, you know. It's something you can be successful. And I think, you know, what we see with, certainly with studios who do this internally across all genres, it just takes time. It takes time to understand the pattern, understand, you know, you're going to get a lot of stuff wrong at the beginning, but once you do get it right, then it can be very, very successful.
What you practice, you get good at, right? I'm definitely not in favor of siloing all playable development to, like, you know, these specific shops that are really, really good at it and know what they're doing and have done it forever. I do believe that you should just build it, right? Just build it, get better, test it, build it, test it, get better.
Steve and Dawn, is incrementality a topic for your clients? Is this something they care about?
Everyone wants, you know, eventually to have incrementality and understanding over a volume over time, and then further down the line, obviously, we kind of pass that on a little bit, somewhat to our clients, because, you know, they're using other systems further down the line. But specifically with us, we're really very focused on the engagement of that experience in a playable, and the reason is, you know, we all, you know, we're going into a world of a bit of uncertainty, right, with iOS 14, and I think, you know, it becomes even more important to just really understand how people are interacting, you know, prior to the install. You know, all these kind of all these points become extremely valuable, to be honest with you. So actually, like, specifically on our side, you know, there's a lot of investment going on in machine learning on at the engagement level of the playables. It's I think it's going to be very important going forward.
Let's talk a bit about the importance of A/B testing, and you guys mentioned it a lot of times before. Let's say, even if the perfect mobile creative existed, it's more than that, because creative performance can provide lots of information about the user's interest and can provide lots of insights that might be helpful for the next step of the iteration process. Paul, do you feel like at the moment you've got A/B testing sorted out for you? And what are your main challenges in terms of A/B testing?
For us, the challenge is the following: is we allocate most of the spend on Facebook, right? Facebook and Google. And unfortunately, in Google, you cannot A/B test creatives because of the behavior of the campaigns, of how the algorithm is set up. And kind of similar is with Facebook. Although you have some tools that allow you to, in theory, test A/B test creatives, the truth is that it's a completely biased system in which the algorithm is eventually going to decide after a couple of thousand impressions which creative performs. So for that, we also try to do it on DSPs, because there you have full control over the whole. I mean, you can actually split the traffic evenly through IDFAs, and you can do all your things. The problem you would have there is that you also have a lot of noise coming from these different SDKs that are actually rendering the videos, for instance. Each SDK will actually fire clicks differently, or the video will not be exactly the same. And that's why when you go to check your CTRs, for instance, or CDRs, you will see completely different results if it's AppLovin, mobile, or Unity ads. So you have to actually remove some noise and just go to certain exchanges where actually trusted. And that would be like a first step. In the terms of A/B testing, we are trying to automate it like everyone else. I think automation actually starts with creative production. Most of the DSPs don't have really a very good algorithm only for creatives. What we do is that we work with DSPs where you can actually plug on your own model. So we build our own model for creatives, and we actually ingest data from BI data, from revenue and all kinds of things into our creative measures, into our creative algorithms. And it has proven really well. So we're quite happy. So we are actually having two algorithms. One, we work with algorithms from the DSP that actually optimizes on events. And then we have our own algorithm optimizing on creatives, also putting in some knowledge that we have from Facebook. But at the end, it's always the same, that what we test, it has to be tested on Facebook to perform. And Facebook is the biggest challenge, I would say, for the gaming companies regarding A/B testing. Yeah.
When testing A/B testing creatives, do you focus on banner A versus banner B, or do you focus on certain ad components? Like, let's say this is this picture versus that picture, or this call to action versus that call to action. How granular are you?
So the creatives, we normally divide them. Then we have like a stream that is like, let's say if it's a war or a trading creative, and then we would have different variations within that stream. Okay, and we would test all different combinations. And we will be testing, now we're going to test stream A, war, okay? And we're going to test war, different combinations of war with different variations of war, and then we iterate those. We do a lot of deep understanding, and at the end you have like a whole big tree. We also test, obviously, trade versus building, but that test normally is pretty straightforward. It's like, hey, building works better, it's a building game. Trading works fine, but doesn't work as good as building. We know that already. So we're trying to test within the different streams. And yeah, that's constant, and that's what we do. And we don't necessarily have to test ABC. We can ABCD, but normally it's AB. I think the more and more product is realizing how important marketing plays a role. That's the trend.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, on our side, it's really, really hard to kind of put a proper A/B test in, to be sure those elements are the same. So yeah, on the playable side, I think again, Dawn, you hit the nail before. Like it's very different to video, right? So you don't have this kind of concept of this perfect A/B test and having like hundreds of line items. So what the way that we approach it certainly is we're able to influence the elements within that playable. So let's say you go to network one, you upload a playable. Well, actually, the kind of general process for going that is you have to kind of upload maybe 3-4 different playable versions. Run those for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, kind of see what the data looks like, then change elements, and then go again. Let's say there's 50 different elements which can be changed within a playable concept. You can kind of let the machine run, see what is driving the best CTR, let's just say, hypothetically, or CPI. Lock that into 50% of the traffic, and then continually change the other elements to see if anything can challenge that. And it's a bit of a different game in terms of A/B testing on playables, but it's an interesting one as well. And I think there's a lot of room for that to grow, and the machine to really test a lot of elements across a different platform. And I think we said it again. And Unity Ads is different to network 1, 2, 3, right? They all perform differently. So you can't just look at them as a whole. You have to really, really be very granular on each channel.
Yeah, on our side, we have A/B testing pretty well figured out as a DSP. We actually we build in parameters, right? These different values that can be changed on each playable, and we actually use machine learning to determine the best value for each. Just from iterative testing. So we actually skip the manual A/B testing process. And from our side, as long as we design the parameters with intent and we build them with intent, we just plug them in, watch it go, and see which one wins. And from there, we remove the parameters that we know are a certain value and add new ones. On the video side, we test video and banners the same way everyone else does, right? A to B, A to B, A to B, over and over.
When you do creative A/B testing, are you focusing on the actual performance of the creative, or are you more looking at the post-install performance?
It's a little bit of both. And it also depends on the client's KPIs, right? So the client kind of tells us what is most important to them. We do have some clients that are purely focused on the click-through rate, the hyper casuals of the world. However, most are focused on the post-install. So our algorithm is not just optimizing for the creative itself, but also what happens down the line, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think it's pretty fair to say that gaming is kind of driving innovation for creative developments for the whole industry. And then other verticals, they are picking this up after something has been tested successful in gaming. What do you think will be the next big thing in mobile games in regards to creatives?
I actually think what Don just mentioned about those different elements within the creative that we can optimize through ML, like if I got it correct, like what they do with the playables, I think that will be coming to JPEGs at some point, like with different PSD elements, and then they can just put it in. And I believe that's coming. And I know a few DSPs are already working on this. And in fact, we're building on automating creative libraries with those tags within the creatives. I think we're going to be optimizing more and more on those meta information from the creatives. And I'm looking much forward to that. As very well Don mentioned, for video is not the case. And it's a very unfortunate. We would love to have it for video, but maybe, I don't know. And it's going to come at some point that it's going to be engineers and creative guys doing the whole thing. And that would probably is the future to come. I don't know how you guys see that.
Steve, what's the next big thing you guys are working on right now?
I think we're going to move more to things of authenticity, a better quality, a better narrative, certainly like a much more consideration when it comes to the kind of, the meta of the game and really the kind of hooks and understanding. I think an understanding of the creative at higher volumes and tracking and really, being able to machine those and test like much higher volume, I think is fundamental, especially as kind of Pat said, on the video side, it's very, very hard to do that now. We definitely see playables on the end of videos, like as M cards, is massive. Like right now, it's just everywhere, right? So all of our clients, yeah, sure, they'll create nice playables, they'll pick a lot of video assets, but just having those playable end cards is a real thing that's happening right now that I can see.
I think authenticity is probably the biggest area where we're going to see growth, especially with iOS 14, sort of changing the entire landscape, right? And the way we see ads in general. For actual innovation, when people think innovation nowadays, they think, augmented reality and VR. But the way that we currently serve ads, right, that's never going to happen because we serve an ad, they would have to request permission for their camera to do anything cool. So, okay, if we can't evolve by using the camera, how do we evolve? And I think we evolve in the same way that Pau said, right? Like it's adding parameters to video and banner. How would we add parameters and different testable values to video? I have no idea. The format, as far as I know, does not allow for it, right? Because it is a one file export. You can't really adjust things in a .mp4. It doesn't really work that way. So is there a new format to invent, right? Is there something crazy to do there? I think, with videos performing by and large, so successfully across all mobile games and all mobile genres, it would revolutionize the industry. I think that's the next place to go. And banners, I think in general, we actually have to catch up with the branding world. Normally branding follows gaming. This time gaming is following branding. I am a big believer in HTML5 banners, right? Because you can do that sort of testing.
I have two open questions. The first one is, what's one piece of practical advice you can offer to gaming advertisers? And the second one is, what's one mistake you've learned from that you wish you had known about before?
I would really stress out what Don just mentioned about branding. Now with iOS 14 coming up, we have to go back to the basics. And branding is going to be super important. We all have to catch up there. I believe that's a great piece of learning that for the years to come. And I think it's good news, actually. I started doing browser advertising in desktop some years ago, and then I moved into mobile like already 5 or 6 years ago. And I always thought, oh, mobile is the new thing, and these desktop dinosaurs, don't listen to them, just do your mobile. And over time, I realized that it was pretty much the opposite. Like desktop was actually ahead of mobile. And it's just that I was actually wrong. And you see that with many products into the DSP world and things like that. And I would always say, again, like with the branding thing, like go back to the basics and go back to desktop, and you will learn a lot more than you actually thought. Also for mobile. Yeah.
So the one piece of practical advice I would offer is make sure that data and creative have an equal seat at the table. I think a lot of people tend to favor one or over the other, consciously or subconsciously. You know, data doesn't necessarily breed innovation, right? And creative intuition doesn't necessarily create like optimal performance. You need both in order to provide good creatives. You know, as the gaming advertiser, you're talking with both your creative department and the number nerds, right? One mistake I've learned, I'll just go personal here. Chase what you love. I think gaming is a really fun industry. You know, and I wish I had stopped you know, building logos and brochures for chiropractors and banks and just kind of got into gaming sooner. You know, chase what you enjoy in life, right? Don't be afraid. Gaming was a risk for me, and it paid off.
I think we can sort of bring it back maybe again to creative and playables. And I think, you know, I had, when we first embarked on this thing, we had this kind of grandiose idea that, you know, if you kind of actually basically take an exact replica of a level of a game, you know, that was going to work really well as a playable experience. And, you know, we got proven pretty wrong, right? You have to, you need to really think about the experience as a playable. And I think that maybe if you kind of, you know, been a little bit less resistant to no, it will work, we would have maybe have learned that mistake quicker. But like I said, mistakes all about learning from, right? And that's the kind of beauty of this. You know, you get to then go on to the next mistake and the next one.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for being on this podcast and for sharing all these insights. It was a pleasure to have you, and yeah, thanks you again. And this was App Marketeers Unplugged. Thank you.